Hello, everyone. This is your Astrology Horoscope for Friday, July 19th, 2024. I'm astrologer Alex Skyles, and welcome to the Moon Base. Hope you guys are doing great. Always good to be here with y'all. Here we are, the moon coming into Capricorn today. So now we're just hours away, 48 hours roughly, away from this Capricorn full moon at 29 degrees, where Pluto is about to retrograde back to. And now that Pluto's at 0 degrees, this full moon happening at 29 degrees that we're going to have here very, very soon. This full moon is going to bring a lots of endings. And I think this is correlating to the past 15 years, as we've been talking about. And obviously in our personal lives of the mountains that we've been climbing for so long, and that we have gone through these massive transformations through a massive Uranus-Pluto square in 2014, 15, 7 of them to be exact, when Uranus was in Aries squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So, this is a closing of a chapter, right? Because those Uranus-Pluto squares are basically at the midpoint of where this full moon is happening. So this is like helping us really look at where, how deep this transformation really goes. And whenever we're inside of it, when we're just moving through time and we're just in the moment, being present, experiencing life and creating life, we don't really realize where we're at. But these full moon cycles, really give us these massive reflection points. So right before this moon comes into Capricorn, right when we come into front, it's going to square Neptune, and so there is these kinds of unsettling feelings of these internal spaces not feeling quite right, or this disconnect from reality that we may be feeling. At the same time, keeping a positive mindset with Mercury and Leo is very important as we move through these really intense times. And that Mars-Uranus conjunction we had on Sunday and Monday, really just pushed forward this whole new energy of it's just, I've had all week, like I haven't been sleeping. This electricity is just pulsating. All the people that I'm working with day to day, we're having similar experiences, and this is a whole new experience that we're having this week as the tides really turn. This is a massive turning point. The Mars-Uranus conjunction quantum leaped this turning point here, right? And it helps speed it up very quickly. And I think with this moon squaring Neptune, it's just there are some emotional things that we're confused about, but we really want to free ourselves from. And I think the way to free ourselves from that is to just really call it like it is, and not fixate on it or go into these loops and spiral out about it, and keeping that positive mindset with Mercury and Leo is really, it can be challenging, but at least at the same time, with Mercury building towards the square to Uranus, like we can have some massive breakthroughs, especially where that real stubborn energy, that stubborn mental energy with this Mercury and Leo. It's like Uranus is just really action-packed right now. Like it's just really triggering so many different areas in our reality that is pushing a lot of change, and very quickly, and I think obviously in the physical world, in our environments, and definitely in the collective, we've seen massive rapid shifts over this past week, but now, like, this is with this Mercury Uranus square that's building, like we're going to start to feel this mental transmutation of these massive shifts happening on a mental level, right? That's what it kind of feels like. And I think this Mercury square Uranus is really going to force that situation, to really look at matters of the heart, in a very circular way, a more non-linear way, right? I think with fixed energy, it's very easy to just, only see the beginning and where it ends, just these straight lines, right? And when we're looking at a natal chart, it's like, it's 360 degrees. There are no exact moments where things are perfect, right? There is no perfection. There is no beginning. There is no end. We are a part of this continuum. And I think realizing that, we only have so much control. When we get to the top of the mountain, that's all we can really, that's the only place where we can surpass in this Saturn retrograde and this moon in Sag to, coming into contact with Neptune and Saturn over these past few days before this full moon, which is a Saturn-ruled full moon. There's so many layers to this, and today, we can really be feeling this energy starting to come on, with this moon coming into Capricorn. It's not going to be exact yet. It's not going to make its opposition to the sun, which is what the full moon is. Wow. That was wild. The chart just moved forward like a million miles an hour. Here we go. So yeah, when this moon comes into Capricorn, it's not going to touch much, it'll be void off course. It will square the nodes, but it won't be until this full moon happens where it will sextile Saturn before the full moon. So I think too, to really prepare for this experience that we're going to be having this weekend. I mean, these 2 months, July and August, are so action packed. And this is like a preparation for a new phase here, even though this full moon is closing out a lot of stuff, and Pluto coming back into Capricorn. Like, there's a lot of things that we've been dragging along this journey that just have to be acknowledged, and we have to discern what we can take with us and what no longer serves us, and what is really, it's about the weight of things. There needs to be some sort of pressure release valve. And I think with this Capricorn moon, it is going to feel like, we need to blow off some steam, right? And I think, too, Mars is at 29 degrees. So we're talking about blowing off some steam. Mars at the last degree of Taurus. So obviously in May, we had so many significant Taurus conjunctions with all the personal planets and Jupiter and Uranus, that this is the final personal planet in Taurus here. So now we're going to be really changing directions here. This full moon is like a toll road, right? So if you want to go forward, you got to pay your dues. If you want to go back, you still got to pay, right? And that's Capricorn, that's Saturn. It's like, there has to be some equal exchange to get to where we're going, of course, and that's very Taurus. It's like Taurus and Scorpio is that exchange. And with Saturn involved so heavily in this full moon, some of these endings, they are going to be very emotional as we're building up to this. So, and I know we're talking about the full moon here before it's happening, but it is this moon coming into Capricorn. Like, we're starting to feel the buildup of what this is going to feel like. So emotions are definitely going to start to rise up that are really intense. And I think being a little bit more, realistic about certain emotional aspects in our lives, and definitely emotional aspects about the past 15 years, especially associated with the traumas that we've gone through, the things that, rise and fall and, build and collapse and you rebuild. And, I think by the time Pluto's fully in Aquarius, we'll have the real perspective of what it's really been. But it is like really trying to understand and realize and awaken to that unconscious space that where a lot of those Pluto experiences exist, where we suppress, we repress, right? So with Pluto, we suppress and repress feelings, emotions, and they come out in unconscious behaviors. And when they do, they rise to the surface and usually in cataclysmic ways. that really alter the evolutionary course of our experience. And I think too with Saturn and Pisces, it's teaching us that when these extreme intense Pluto moments of, things falling away and climbing the mountain and then totally having to start from scratch again, it's like really, really understanding how Capricorn really works, and when you get to the top, it's like, it's not just about staying there, right? And if you want to stay there at the top, it can get boring, it can get lonely, it can get, you can feel disconnected from reality itself, which is the irony of Capricorn, because Capricorn and Saturn is all about starting from the bottom and getting to the top. But when you get to the, but Saturn's all about reality. But when you get to the top, it's like you really are disconnected from the reality of the majority. But when you can see the landscape from the top and get that perspective and draw that into the next phase, right? Because it's the sine wave. The sun makes a sine wave, right? 365 days. The pattern it makes is a sine wave, right? The dynamics of life is, hopefully it's a sine wave. If it's like a jagged saw wave, then we got a lot of work to do. But in general, those dynamics of these highs and lows, and they are perfect. It's always the way it's meant to be. And, Saturn in Pisces is teaching us is that when these dynamics really fluctuate and start to express themselves, it's accepting and realizing that this is a part of our journey and a part of our fate and a part of our destiny. And that's what Saturn and Capricorn teaches us. And this full moon is going to be teaching us some very emotional lessons, and giving us this perspective and reflection on how we've evolved and what we've gone through. The end of Pluto cycles are some of the most intense experiences. That 0 and 29 degrees is, it's that faded degree of like, this is when things, at the 29th degree, it's like when things add up and the, phases end and, all things come to, it's those karmic moments when all things come to a head and, in order to move to the next phase, all that karmic buildup has to be dealt with and acknowledged, and it has to go somewhere, meaning like a volcano. That's very Uranus, right? Volcano, but also very Pluto. And Pluto in Aquarius, it is. It's like things are just settled. Some of the tension starts to build. Tectonic plates start to rub and shift. And then, that release valve, the exhaust of the earth. And sometimes too, it helps to talk about things, right? So you talk about like a volcano being like the exhaust of the earth. It's like our mouths being the exhaust of our brains, and sometimes we just need to let it out. Whatever we're feeling, whatever we're going through, and I think with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, there are people in our lives where we can, actually express these things too, and I think Saturn wants us to really open up about these things, whatever intense emotional experiences that we're going through, and that Sun-Uranus sextile yesterday really kind of pushed us into like, okay, like we got to get over these emotional states, right? Like, it's great, but we can't just be stuck here. We can't just be fixed here. We got to like flow and move through these feelings and emotions, and it's really going to be pretty interesting too, because with this full moon, Mars is going to be coming right into Gemini, and Pluto is going to be right there, and Mars is going to trine Pluto with this full moon. So there is this positive action forward where we can, where things have been disconnected, where we can start to make connections, right? So, with Jupiter on its way to square Saturn, we don't want to push and overdo things too much, and I'm guilty of that. These past few weeks have been a lot. So, since Saturn and Neptune has been retrograde, it's been very intense, so taking care of yourself, resting as much as possible. I think rest is very important right now, especially with this Jupiter square Saturn and the mental energy. It just, we got to keep our mental and physical health in check as we're moving through this Jupiter square Saturn, and not to push things too hard. You can't force the door open with Jupiter and Saturn squaring each other, especially in mutable signs, because there's going to be a lot of changes. When we're talking mutable squares, it's going to force change, and it may feel like things aren't really solid, and even some of these changes aren't solid, and it is too. It's like, well, this isn't temporary. It's okay. And two, the things that we're trying to grow and expand currently with Jupiter, Saturn, building a square with Saturn retrograde, it's like, with just Jupiter and Gemini, we may be doing 1,000 different things. And not everything's going to stick. Not everything's going to land, And I think, too, with Saturn, it's teaching us that there is, like, you got to find that one thing and stick to it and, take the journey with it. With Gemini, it's like, well, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then, you get caught up in so many different things, you don't even actually get anything done. And that's Jupiter in its detriment in Gemini. So we want to be patient with ourselves. If we feel like we don't have enough energy or enough time or enough mental space to do the things that we need to do or expand in the ways that we want to expand, that's okay. We have to focus on what's right in front of us with Jupiter and Gemini. We have to focus on, the task at hand with Saturn involved, and building a more disciplined routine into our lives and acknowledging the things where we get lost and where we get disconnected from reality. So we're going through a lot right now, and the rest of 2024 is going to be really intense. There's a lot of great things to look forward to as well, because I think not getting sucked into the chaos and not getting sucked into the BS and just staying on your track. And I think this full moon in Capricorn is going to be reminding us of that. It's like, you know what? Like, yes, things are changing. The world is changing. Our lives are changing. But we have to stay on our path and keep pushing, to get to a better place, And I think, too, if with this Jupiter and Gemini squaring Saturn, if we're feeling disconnected or our mental states are getting a little funky and, go outside yourself, right? It's like going outside of yourself to show up in ways that, there's no, like, well, if I do this, then I have to receive, like just being there, being present, and just selfless acts of service and love could really help us pull us out of those difficult spaces. But, there are these moments too where it's like with Saturn retrograde square Jupiter, it's like, you get so sucked into, there's not enough. There's a lack, right? There's a lack mindset that can come along with this Jupiter square Saturn, which, is being able to process those things and work through that mindset and get a better understanding of why am I in this frequency. It's like maybe we're doing too much. Maybe we're putting our energy out there too much. Or maybe like we're only focusing on ourselves too much. And, we get so caught up in our minds that, we don't have time for other things or other people or, the people who rely on us and depend on us, So those kinds of things are coming to a head with this Jupiter square Saturn. And I think these lessons are very important and very good to really work through and accept and, take them with, a rational approach and not letting the emotions dictate the outcome or the reality. And that's what Saturn in Pisces is teaching us, to not let the subconscious stuff dictate our reality and take hold of the reins and not let the current of the tides, whether it's beautiful or chaotic or insane, dictate our directionality towards where we're supposed to go. Because I do believe that we all do have a purpose and a destiny and a reason to be here. And everything in our lives happens for a reason. And in my short 33 years, that's been completely undeniable that every single moment and every event, positive, negative, was meant to be. And that is reassuring, even going through difficult times. That's what keeps me positive, is knowing that and trusting that even when shit's wild. So we got the Knight of Wands. So, like the heat is on, and that mental energy with that Mercury in Leo, it's, speaking from the heart, but also like maintaining that, like, we don't want to fall into that Capricorn grumpy energy. We want to stay in that Leo, that heart energy, because yes, we're about to go through the full moon, which can be very heavy and very intense and a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings and endings, things that have been going on for a very long time. Pluto cycles and Capricorn, it's the long term, these long-term cycles, So these cycles are ending long-term patterns, and to have that fire and to have that youthful energy and that instinct to really push forward with the Knight of Wands, I think, that's where we're going to find the magic. And to me, that's what the wand represents, obviously, is, wielding your own magic. But, to maintain that, you have to be willing to show yourself, take off the mask, and be who you are, right? That's what I always found. That's what I always find to be really interesting about the Knight of Wands, or the Knight cards. Anyway, it's like removing that armor from your most vulnerable place, where your eyes. The eyes are the window to the truth, to the soul. So being able to show that with Mercury and Leo, and being able to be vulnerable and express that, with that fire, and keep pushing forward and to move quickly, and to also, it's like the Knight of Wands. Like, what's he do? He's like popping a wheelie on the horse, right? He's like, it's like, look what I can do, like being confident as well, and not letting the chaos and the intensity and the turbulence and the fucking weird shit, like, take you out of that. And Leo season teaches us that every year. So we're ending Cancer season with one of the most important full moon of the year, in my opinion. Obviously in Capricorn season, when Pluto, those new moons and full moons were just as important as these. But this one, of course, I think is the most important, because this is the last one with Pluto coming back into Capricorn for the final time. So even though this full moon's not necessarily with Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn, it's still right there. And of course, these last 6 months are the last moments with Pluto here. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope this was helpful. And I will see you all for the weekend and for the full moon. I know we talked a lot about it today, but there's a lot more to go into. So hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.